So, protocol overview. So, Ethereum Credit Guild is a lending protocol that works very differently than any other lending protocol that you know, aka AAVE Compound. There are no oracles, and the governance playing a much bigger role than in other lending protocols. How does it work? So, first thing is that we have the Guild token. The Guild token is kind of, I would say, the most important token. The Guild token is the governance token. Like in AAVE, you have the AAVE token. In like Uniswap, you have Uni token. So this is the Guild token, but it has a lot of things that you can do with this Guild token, more than just vote for proposals. You can do other things. You can stake it and make yield. You can be slashed if you staked your Guild token in some kind of lending term that had bad debt. And there are a lot of like interesting nuances around this Guild token. What else? And it's not transferable. So initially, it's not going to be transferable. You can earn it from the protocol when you stake credit token, which we'll talk in a moment. What are credit tokens? So this Guild token can be minted for you. You can vote for stuff on the protocol, for proposals, for lending terms. We'll understand in a second what this lending term means. You can stake this Guild token to make returns and interest, to accrue interest, but you cannot sell it. Initially, you cannot transfer it to another wallet. It's not transferable unless the governance decided it is transferable. You cannot sell it. It won't have liquidity probably in the beginning. So this is a Guild token, but obviously in the future, it will be transferable. It will have liquidity. Now, what is this? Before that, the Guild token is implementing multi-votes and gauges. Gauge. I don't know how to say it. Everyone says it differently. But gauge or gauge is something like curve protocol, where like gauge, you can imagine a gauge where you can put your Guild tokens inside. And this is how basically the gauge is being filled, and more liquidity is getting allocated, something like that. So in Curve, when you vote for liquidity pairs, right? Basically, the more the gauge is full in Curve, this liquidity pair will have more Curve token yields, right? More farm yields, because so basically a lot of protocols have incentives to get Curve tokens to vote for their liquidity pair or try. It could be like 3 tokens in one liquidity contract. So basically, protocols have incentives to hold the Curve token, because using this Curve token, you can vote for gauge and increase the yield rewards. And basically incentivize more people to add liquidity to your token or your protocol. So gauges are being used here to vote for lending terms, not for like liquidity contracts or liquidity gauges like in Curve, but for lending terms. Now, what are lending terms? I think before we talk about the governance, let's explain a bit what are lending terms.
Lending term, it's as the name suggests, you're able to lend, you're able to deposit collateral and wait. Can you go over to the right? I think
to the right.
You should start with the mechanism. There's an example of deposit ETH collateral and borrow USDC.
This one?
Yeah. So this is ECG is a lending protocol, and the way it works is, you need two sides: users that will supply the token and users that will borrow the token. For the supply side, users would deposit some kind of token. Initially, they said they're just going to launch with USDC, so they deposit USDC in a contract called Simple PSM, and this would give the user back a credit token. In this case, it's called GUSDC. For each token that they deposit into the Simple PSM, they get a different credit token. So you might have like GUSDC if you deposit USDT. Then if you deposit USDT into a Simple PSM that supports USDT, then you will get something like a GUSDT. But for now, they only have support for USDC. So yeah, once user gets credit GUSDC, next is the borrow side. How would you borrow USDC? A person that wants to borrow USDC will first have to deposit collateral into a lending term. The way parameters on like how much collateral you need to deposit in order to borrow a certain amount of GUSDC is set by the governance, and it is fixed inside the lending term.
1 second, I will just open it to show.
Yeah.
So we have the borrow function.
Yeah.
And as you can see here, we have a calculation of max borrow, which is dependent on the collateral that you put in ETH and some kind of parameter that this lending term is being set up with, created with, divided by credit multiplier, which is like the secret sauce for this whole protocol and the Pandora box for this whole protocol that we will talk about later. But basically, we determine how many credit tokens you can get based on your collateral and these parameters. Yeah.
So user deposits ETH as collateral. They will get back GUSDC as credit. Now a user wants to borrow USDC, so the way it works is he would take this USDC, put it into simple PSM, and simple PSM will give the user back USDC.
Yeah.
I think that sort of explains how lending and borrowing works and also explains the lending term.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.